Hey, what's going on? What's happening? Hope you're all doing well. It's Saturday, October the 19th, 2024, 1:16 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I thought I would jump on a Saturday afternoon, see what you guys are doing. It's a lazy Saturday. We'll see if anybody gives a shit and rolls on in. Maybe not. Maybe they will. Maybe not. How's your Saturday? Come hang out with me. Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 289 of Mcrae Live. It is Saturday, October the 19th. Yeah, that's right, 2024, 1:17 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I had some time this afternoon, so why not jump on and talk to all of you people out into the ether, out into the world, the landscape, the universe, whatever the case is. It's an all Q&A today, so let's get those questions in. Any kind of questions you have, let's get them in, and we'll see if anybody rolls on it. It's a beautiful day here in Toronto. It's, what is it? It's 66 degrees Fahrenheit. It is sunny, blue sky, sun, beautiful October day. The leaves are blowing along the streets. They're changing, they're falling. It's absolutely gorgeous. I should have done this show from outside, really, is what I should have done. You know what I'm going to do? I should walk over to a park near where I live, and on a future episode, I should sit in the park on a beautiful fall day and just do the show from there. That'd be a lot of fun, right? Just on my phone. That actually I think would be really cool. That'd be a lot of fun. Chester Franklin Jr., what's going on? Steve Ross, Brooks Scarlett, Shamrock Balls. Shamrock Balls is here. Wade Effin Wilson is here. Others are here as well. Ryan S. is here, and Logan Reynolds is here, and Michael Dammit is here, and Warren Armour, Tom Ungurian, Michael Edwards. You guys are here and rolling on in. What's going on? What is happening? Michael Dammit says, how are you feeling, Steve? Steve says, I'm feeling pretty good, Michael. Thanks, man. Not saying you sound like that, Steve. It's just me being funny. Do not take me seriously, ladies and gentlemen. And Shamrock Ball says, hey, Dave, finally watched It's Me, Billy 1 and 2. Great job. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's been just over a week. We're closing in on 10,000 views, which is great. Of course, to some people out there, that's probably considered a catastrophic flop. Hey, you times that by ticket sales, we've already made our budget back. It's kind of a cool way to look at it. No, look, it's doing very well. We're very pleased. And obviously, it's going to continue to do well right up and, well, again, it's a seasonal film, right? So we imagine that it'll continue to do well right up into the holidays. I mean, the first It's Me, Billy has just gained about 3,000 or 4,000 views. No, about 3,000 views in the last week as well, or the last week and a half, which is fantastic. It's over 80,000 views now, which is great. So the two films together is over 90,000 views. It's great. We're doing very well. Very happy with it. Very, very happy with it. Brooke Scarlett says, congrats on IMDb 2, Dave. Thank you, Brooke. Michael Dammit says, just started IMDb 2 when you went live. Guess I'll watch later. Well, you can go watch the movie and then watch this later. I mean, both will be there. I'm okay if you do that. Archers Outdoors says, Dave, have you ever been an American football fan? Yeah. I mean, here in Canada, we have the CFL, right? The Canadian Football League. But it's gridiron football. It's the same. I mean, we have 3 downs instead of 4 downs. Our fields are 110 yards instead of 100 yards. Like, there's some differences. But the actual sort of, the basic layout, the basic rules of the game are essentially the same. But have I been a fan of the NFL? Yes and no. Like, I mean, the NFL is huge up here. At one time, the CFL was way bigger up here. But now the NFL is dominant. I mean, it's one of the most dominant sports leagues in the world. And so, yeah, I'm a casual kind of, not like kind of a casual fan. If I had to pick a favorite team, it would probably be the Buffalo Bills, just because the Buffalo Sabres are my favorite hockey team. So, and years ago, I used to have a Jim Kelly jersey. So, and then the Bills are my favorite team. And then they went to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row and lost all 4 years in a row. And I thought, yeah, that kind of stings. So I haven't really been paying attention to football since to the NFL since I was a teenager. But my brother Bob and my brother Neil and my sister Jill are huge NFL fans. My brother Bob and my sister Jill, I think, are Green Bay Packer fans. My brother Neil's a Kansas City Chiefs fan, and not just because they won the Super Bowl the last few years. He's been a Kansas City Chiefs fan for decades. And so it was really cool to see the Chiefs win the Super Bowl a few times there over the last few years. And he was very excited about that. So I'm very happy for him. And then there's people like me. I'm a Buffalo Sabres fan. And the Buffalo Sabres, again, are off to a goddamn shitty start. They're what, like 1-4, 1-5? God, I don't understand it. What is wrong with Buffalo? Anyways, we're not here to talk about sports, but I will be a Sabres fan until I die. But what are you going to do? Super chat. There's a couple of super chats actually came in. First one was from Josh McKenna. Thank you, Josh. Sends in $9.99. Says, I'm at work now, so I'll watch later. But you did the voices on the radio in Chapter 2, right? I also loved all the voices you did for Billy. Everything sounded amazing. Yeah, so for those of you that have seen It's Me, Billy Chapter 2, I was the voice on the radio at the beginning in Lynn's house, in Nancy's house, played by Lynn. I was the voice on the radio. I was also the voice, the 911 dispatch voice. I was that voice as well. And yes, I did lend my voice to Billy again in Chapter 2. But most of that dining room scene is Brian Charles Peter. You know, all the laughing and the like all that kind of stuff. That's all him. That's not me. I came in and did some stuff as things began to ramp up, right? As things got crazy and we're cutting all around and all this kind, and you start to hear like Billy, like all this kind of, like all. That's when I started to come in and sort of compliment what he was doing. But a lot of it in the beginning, at the very beginning of that scene, when we're going around and you hear him laughing and he's crying and he's getting angry and he's lashing out, all that. That's Brian. That's not me. So I like to give credit where credit is due. And then super chat from the Violator 862. Thanks, buddy. Sends in $9.99. Says, hey, Dave, have you seen the recent news about a Halloween video game? Not the retro arcade game. Hope it's a single player game in the vein of Alien Isolation. Is it the one that John Carpenter's a part of? He's a part of it somehow, doing the music or something. I don't know. That's the only one that I know is the retro 8-bit game, and then the other one that they're working on. So I think that's the one you're talking about. I am aware of that one, but I don't know of any sort of details as of late. I mean, the last few weeks here have just been all Billy, and that's what it is when you have a deadline to meet and you need to get things out. And I've been so busy trying to get everything out. I mean, look, the last night the night before the release, we released the movie on October 11th at 9 a.m. That night before, I was up all night. Like literally, I don't mean that in a hyperbolic way. I mean, literally, I was up all night. I did not go to bed. And because I was getting everything ready for the release, all the promotional material, because it's going to go out on Instagram and on Facebook and on Twitter and of course on YouTube and on Vimeo, and of course you have thumbnails to create, all this kind of stuff. And so I was up all night. So I've been sort of kind of paying attention to what's been going on. I know that Wolfman, there's another trailer for Wolfman. I watched that. I thought it was really good, actually. I'm very excited to see that. That comes out in January, directed by Lee Winnell, of course, a director of The Invisible Man, which was fantastic. And then, of course, I watched the trailer for The Strangers Chapter 2. Doesn't really do anything for me. No disrespect to the maybe it's going to be a great movie, but I don't know. It doesn't do much for me. Then what else? Of course, Terrifier 3 came out. Haven't seen that. Will not go see that just because it's not the kind of movie that I care to see in the theater. I'll catch it on streaming. It'll be on streaming really soon anyway, because it's a Christmas horror movie. So they're going to want to capitalize on their run here in the theaters. And then I would be stunned if Terrifier 3 is not available for on demand or streaming, at the least on demand, by the holidays. I mean, it's going to, and when I say the holidays, I don't mean November 1st. I mean, let's say by December. By December, I would be shocked if Terrifier 3 was not available for at least, PVOD. So I'll catch it then. But what else? Yeah, just and of course, the release of Billy too, and like I said, the feedback has been great. There is a video on my channel. Bruce and I did a live show last week or earlier this past week where we talked about sort of our creative process and why we made the creative decisions we did. There's a video on my channel right now. It's only got about 500 views, but if you're somebody that has questions or maybe you're confused about certain things in the movie, I encourage you to watch it. It's not just me talking, although I am talking. I have some music there and I show images and examples and all that kind of stuff. So it's a little more high production value than maybe you're used to for a Dave Mcrae video. So I encourage you to go check it out. It'll give you some insight into sort of a more compartmentalized version of the stream I did with Bruce. But it'll probably open your eyes to a few things, because I have had some people reach out from watching that going, oh, I didn't get it. And keep in mind too, folks, if you're not a Black Christmas fan, there's a lot of things you may not understand. Like at the end of the movie when Jess says, I know how she helped you, the girl in the park, the policeman, you might go, the girl in the park, the policeman. That doesn't mean anything to me, because maybe you've never seen the original movie, or maybe you've seen it, but 25 years ago and it doesn't, you know what I'm saying? So keep in mind, to get a true enriching experience of It's Me, Billy Chapter 2. And I said this for months and months and months before the movie ever came out. You remember me saying this. To really get the full weight of It's Me, Billy Chapter 2, watch Black Christmas, watch Chapter 1, then watch Chapter 2. If you've never seen Black Christmas and you saw Billy but like 2 or 3 years ago and you watch Chapter 2, it's probably not going to do much for you because there's probably so many things you forget. You might be like, that was really cool, it was really well made, but there's so many nuances and details and deep cuts that you may not pick up on because you're just not familiar with the source material. And so it will always be in a more enriching experience when you have the full. It's like going in to watch, Return of the Jedi, but have never seen The Empire Strikes Back. It's like, oh, okay. You might have fun with it, but it's going to have more weight when you have the full picture. That should go without saying, but I only say that because there have been some people that have reached out to me and said, watched your movie, loved it, didn't quite understand this. And then I'm like, well, have you seen any of the Black Christmas, have you seen the original film? No. Have you seen my movie? Yeah, I think I did. When it came out. I'm like, well, okay, go watch them. Listen, if you don't want to watch the original film from 1974, that's okay. Although it would be much better if you did, at least watch the first Billy film, because then you'll get the full thing. I'm not saying that means you're going to like it. I just mean that you'll at least get a better picture of what's going on. Steve Ross says, I saw the first 2 Terrifiers, got my fill of Art the Clown, no desire to see part 3. Hey, different strokes for different folks, right? Different strokes for different folks. But I agree. Alex Shambach says, hey, Dave, I'm currently accompanying my sister on a cross-country road trip from Phoenix to Pittsburgh on day 5, last day of driving. What's the longest you have ever driven? Oh, longest I've ever driven is probably about 8 hours. If you include there and back, it would be 16 hours. But I drove to New York City about 10 years or so ago. And from Toronto to New York, it's about 8 hours, 7.5. 8 hours. And then, of course, the drive back is about another 7.5 or 8 hours. So 8 and 8 is 16, right? Yeah, I think so, if my math is correct. So, yeah, that's the longest I've ever driven in one shot, would be 8 hours there, 8 hours back. So in one continuous shot, 8 hours, but total 16. So drive safely, have fun. Michael Dammit says, I watched the 74 version before watching It's Me, Billy, and I was pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed it. Well, that's good. I'm glad you did. Yeah, there's deep cuts in there. Again, again, and I was saying this for months and months, right? I said that although Billy 2 is being released as its own separate short film for obvious reasons, I mean, this is really a financial situation here, right? We're not backed by a studio. We have to rely on crowdfunding, and that's how it sort of, came to be. Billy 2 is not like its own separate movie, like 2 years later. I mean, it really is just the last half of the movie. And so to really get the full enriching experience, it is its own short film. That's how we released it, but that's why we called it Chapter 2 and not like Part 2, because we called it Chapter 2, so it feels like it's connected in the same sort of in the same sort of narrative timeline, in the same time and space, if you know what I mean, right? It's the same movie. The first movie is the first and half of the second act, and Billy 2 is the end of the second act and the third act. Because some people are like, Billy 2 really ramps up. And I'm like, well, yeah, because it's the third act of the movie. That's like, again, it would be like watching half of the original Halloween and then watching the last half of the original Halloween, right? The first half of Halloween might be a bit more slower burn, slower. And then the last half of Halloween, they ramp it up a little bit, right? It's the same thing. And it was designed that way on purpose. So, I think maybe what might end up happening, because Bruce and I are planning on releasing both movies in like a supercut, but the films together, so you have a feature-length film of both movies together. I think when we do that, and when we release that, I think, and then you get to sit down and watch. You don't have to jump between two videos. I think when you sit down and you watch that, I think maybe for some that might help. You think, oh, I can't really see it here. Because although there's 3 years apart in terms of the production of both films, right? Billy 2 takes place the same night. Well, it starts the same night, and then it fast forwards to like 24 hours later, right? Where it's Christmas night now, you know what I'm saying? But it's not like it's 2 years later, or something like that. So I look, it's going to work for some, it's not going to work for others, but that's why I said to truly get and that doesn't mean you're going to like it. I just mean to give yourself the best opportunity of liking it. I think it's best enjoyed at the absolute minimum watching 1 then 2. And then if you really want the whole picture, you really want to understand what Jess is talking about on the phone and what's going on here and what that means and all that, then watch the original film as well, because it really is connected in that way. And it's cool, it's cool. But yeah, look, so far the feedback has been really great. Not everybody likes it, not everybody, enjoys what we've been doing. That's the nature of putting yourself out there. There have been people that have been, throwing a little bit of low key shade my way, and that's fine. That's totally fine. You can do that. You can totally, you're more than welcome to do that. It doesn't mean I'm going to take you seriously. But I do know that and then you have those that, and this is just normal. We had this issue with Chapter 1 as well. You'll have certain people that just can't get past the fact that these two films were made at all. So you have some people that are just like how there are Halloween purists, you have Black Christmas purists, and that will die on the hill that this is the only movie that Jess died at the end of that movie, and this is why, because the killer made a phone call after every time he killed somebody, and when we're pulling back from that, the house, you hear the phone ring, and that's a signal that she's dead, and there's no way and dead. I'm telling you right now, I'm not going to watch this. I mean, there have been people that have said to me, I'm not going to watch this movie because I just don't, to me, it's just Black Christmas. Or they've watched it and there was one review on the first It's Me, Billy. I forget where this was now, whether it was IMDb or Letterboxd, or maybe it was actually in the comments of the video. I can't remember, but I remember there was a review, quote unquote, and I give them props. And I'm paraphrasing, but they said, this is an incredibly well shot movie. This is not a fan film. This is like, the acting's really good, the tension's great, the mood's great. But they said something like, I'm giving it like a 1.5 out of 5 or something like that. And they said, purely because I just don't like that this movie exists. They said that. They said Bob Clark, it's such an important film. To me, it's one of the greatest films of all time to me, and I just don't like that this movie exists. Again, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something like that, and I was like, to me, it felt petty. Then why review the movie at all, right? I mean, if you're just going to give it a 1 star out of 5 simply because it exists, that's not a review. That's not a review. Too many people, and especially on Letterboxd, too many people don't understand the difference between an opinion and a critique. There's a big difference, folks. There's a big difference. And, you're never supposed to critique what you think they should have done. You're supposed to critique what has been done. And so, yeah, I mean, you always take Letterboxd reviews with a bit of a grain of salt. Sometimes there's astute reviews on there where you're like, oh, you know what? This is a great review. And maybe it's not in favor of your film, but it's a great review. You know what I mean? And then there are others that, this is trash. And that's all it says. 1 star. This is trash. It's like, okay. All right. You know what I mean? Like that, I can't, like, I don't even know, and that's the problem, is we live in that world. Right. But I was like, wow, it's fascinating, but they were honest. They said, I just don't like that your movie exists, and I actually, I said this to Frank and Darren not long ago of The Slaughtered Lamb. I actually take that as as sort of a badge of honor, as a compliment, because if our movie was dog shit, if our movie looked like a home movie shot in your backyard, you'd have no problem. No Black Christmas purist would have trouble watching it, right? Because it's clearly a homemade little fucking movie. I'll watch it. But the fact that we've delivered a professional product, for some Black Christmas fans, I think really kind of they can't because it's so real, quote unquote, right? And so they can't bring themselves. I can't get lost in this. It's making me think that this is really, Anyways, it's interesting. It's interesting. It is. It's interesting. But no, look, we're very proud of it. Anybody out there that didn't like it, you're free to not like it. That's you. You're free to do that. But we're very proud of the hard work that we've accomplished. It's not easy making movies. There's a lot of turning parts, a lot of things that you can be as prepared as you can be, and things can change on set at the last minute, whether it's time restraints, whether it's an adjustment in the script because something happened, in the location, there's something that you didn't foresee. There's something, it happens all the time in movies. And so, it's tough. That's why making movies is real. It's a wonder that movies are made at all. It's a wonder that fantastic, amazing, powerful, great movies are made at all. It really is. But we're very proud of it, and it's doing well. And, again, I'll sometimes get asked, was it everything you wanted in terms of chapter 2? And I'm like, well, look, I mean, every filmmaker will tell you there's the movie you imagine in your head, there's the movie that you shoot, and then there's the movie that you release, right? And so it's very rare that the movie you imagine in your head is the exact movie 100% verbatim what you release, because of the variety of factors and variables. And so, no, there were things in chapter 2 that we weren't able to get, or we weren't able to shoot, or shots that you might have been like, that we weren't able to get for a variety of reasons, right? But at the end of the day, we're very proud of what we were able to achieve, and the story was still delivered, right? The story that we wrote was still delivered, and a lot of the things that 98, 97% of what we set out to achieve, we did. But there's some things, we couldn't achieve, whether it was budgetary reasons, whether it's time, right? I've said before, there's certain coverage on certain scenes that I wish I would have gotten more of. But that comes down to, you're always fighting against time and the logistics of the shoot. And so it can be tricky. But, we're very proud of it. But that doesn't mean everybody's going to like it. Super chat from the Violator again, 862-999 says, there was some guy on Reddit ranting how you specifically have ruined the entire horror landscape with IMDb Chapter 2. Have I really? I haven't seen this one. He stated that you ruined horror and it will never recover because of you. Oh my God. See what I'm saying? Horror will never recover because of me? Some guy on Reddit? I haven't seen that one. I haven't even thought to check Reddit. I know there's a few people that really don't like me over on Reddit. They really just, you know, and listen, and here's the funny thing. Here's the thing that I find really, look, there are certain people that will watch me, not like me, because maybe they just don't jive with my personality. They think I'm too whatever, right? And they will legitimately unsubscribe, walk away, and never pay any attention to me ever again. And I give full props to those people. And I mean it sincerely. I don't mean that in a satirical way. I commend those people. I don't like Dave Mcrae. I'm out. And they walk away. And then you get those that are full of shit. You get those that say they don't like me, they hate me, they think I'm condescending, pretentious, and arrogant, and whatever else they want to say. But they tune in every day. They're always here, like your Devontae Huntley, who's probably watching right now. He's probably watching from his one of 473 accounts. You know, I can't stand that Dave Mcrae, but he always watches. So who really wins in the end, right? And it's me. I win, just in case you weren't able to fill that gap. But there's so many people that can't fucking stand me, but they watch me. And maybe it's to hate watch me, I don't know. But hey, how you doing? What's going on? And they talk tough behind the camera, but I never see them around. I don't know where they are. You know what I mean? They'll go on to Reddit, but I never see them here. They never reach out. Well, sometimes they do. Sometimes they reach out to me, and that's that hate mail. But yeah, no, I find that stuff really funny. I've ruined the horror landscape with IMDb too. I've just ruined it. I've just ruined it. Maybe he was a big fan of the original Black Christmas and didn't like what we were doing. I don't know. I have no idea. Soul J 94. Sorry, I don't quite. Soul J Jastel 94. Dave, can you please put your fan film Halloween? Can you please put back your fan film of Halloween back on YouTube, please, bro? No, it's not going to happen. I know the one you're talking about, Halloween the Night He Came Back. I'm not going to put it back on there because the reason why it was taken off was because YouTube put it all out of sync. And now, I look at not that I'm not proud of that little film. I think it's, a lot of fun. But moving forward, I want to make sure that I have... it's just something I want to make sure that moving forward, the things that are on my channel are more reflective of the quality of work of where I am now. And so, although that was a lot of fun to do, it's not a film that I would consider professional or a professional product. It's not that it's like a home movie. I just mean that, there's certain things on my channel that I'm happy with, and there's certain things that I'm like, I think this, you know what I mean? And so, because moving forward, we're taking the filmmaking seriously. And so, it's just not something, again, it's all about cleaning up your portfolio and what you want to showcase and what you don't want to showcase. And so Halloween the Night He Came Back was a lot of fun. I'm not saying it looks bad. I don't mean that. I just mean in terms of like the little shorts I've done on my channel that are like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Those are fine because those are clearly little shorts of me just farting around in my outfit, right? But in terms of actual movie, a narrative piece, I think the two Billy films are, I know, they are light years ahead of that movie in every category imaginable. And so that's what I want showcased. I don't really want that there at the moment. I think I've grown beyond that. I think I've grown out of that. And that's just, again, it's not that I'm not proud of it. I am, but it's more of a, when you are showcasing a portfolio or you want your portfolio out there to be showcased, you always want to put your best work forward, right? And so I think in comparison to the Billy films, The Night He Came Back doesn't hold a candle. It's just not, and it's not even the same universe. And so that's why, maybe it was serendipitous. That's not why I removed it, because I removed it like 3 years ago or whatever it was. But YouTube did something where I was watching the movie, or somebody actually brought it to my attention and said, hey, Dave, your Halloween movie, which is like 45 minutes long, it's all out of sync. And I went, and it is. And I don't just mean a little bit out of sync. I mean like a minute out of sync. So it's not like Kung Fu movie. It's like really out of sync. And I'm like, what the hell? And so I had to remove it. I mean, it's not even watchable. So maybe it was serendipitous, because about a year or two later, I started to think, you know what, maybe I'm glad that look, if somebody were to ever ask me, hey, can you show us the progression? Well, sure, then maybe I can dig some things out. But it's just not something that I want on the channel at the moment. I think what it is too is also because of the reach that it will have. The Halloween fan film will always have far more reach and engagement than the Billy films. And I don't want that, right? So, because I think the Billy films are better. I think they're better from, again, every category imaginable. I think they're better. And I don't just mean better. I mean, they're professional products. I mean, the Billy films look like they can be in the theater, right? The Night He Came Back doesn't. And so it's one of those things where, but The Night He Came Back will always get more views and more engagement and more push because it's Halloween. It's Michael Myers. And so hopefully you understand it from my perspective, that I'm not embarrassed by the movie. It's more of a business decision. It's a business decision, in the sense of, for me as an artist and as a creator and as a filmmaker moving forward, I want to be able to continue to showcase my best work. And that's really what it's all about. So, maybe I'll throw it on the channel again after I've been able to, direct some films that move me forward as a filmmaker and things like that. And then you can look back on that as sort of a fun kind of thing. But while I'm still in this position as a filmmaker, looking for work, trying to move that forward, it's something I just want to keep my portfolio clean and a representation of the best work. So that's really, really what it's all about. But I'm not embarrassed by it. Don't think that. I'm not at all. Not at all. It's just, you look at and any artist or creator, whether you're a graphic designer, whether you're a filmmaker, whether you're a voice actor, which I am, whether you're, for example, if I was, showcasing my voiceover reel, which is I sometimes do, you showcase your best work, right? Oh, I've done a promo for It Chapter 1. I got to put that on there, right? I'm not going to necessarily put, something from 15 years ago on there that is, I have better stuff, right? So you always showcase your better stuff. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. And any creator will know what I'm talking about. Let me see. Super chat from Microsoft sends in $5, says, what if the man in black was revealed as Brackett? Wears black to symbolize intense mourning, and he's hunting down Myers. Wants to use Jamie as bait. Well, I don't think that'd be anything worse than what they did. I mean, I think that also would have been hilarious and what the hell is going on? But I don't think that would be any... I don't think that would have been worse. That's for sure. That's funny. KJ Saw sends in $4.99. Thanks, buddy. Says, Dave, did you see that they are remaking American Psycho? They will ruin another classic with a bad remake. I don't know. I don't think it's ruined. I've thought long and hard about this phenomena, I should say, about how people feel that classics can be ruined with a bad remake. I've wanted to do a show on this for a while, but I'm not confident yet on the psychological and sociological aspect of it, which is why I haven't done it, because I do find it an interesting phenomenon, right? So let's think about this logically. So a beloved classic, let's say American Psycho, right? And they remake it. And let's say it's dog shit. It's dog shit. It's fucking shit. Okay. Well, they haven't taken the original movie away. It's still available. You can still purchase it. You can still download it. You can still rent it, buy it. You can still look it up online. You can still, it's still there. So why is it that many fans, and this is a bit of a rhetorical question, because I do think it's a psychological phenomenon. Why is it that many fans get so angry when there is a remake that doesn't land? And I think again, I haven't really... I want to dive more into this, and maybe I need to do a bit more reading. But I think it has something to do with this psychological trick that the movie industry is, and this is really layman's terms here, but the movie industry is somehow, by remaking a beloved classic, they are somehow saying to the viewer or to the world that this remake is now the right one, that this remake is now the one that matters, that this new version is now the one that is truly canon, or that this new one is now the one that really, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think, it's kind of like, it kind of feels like, why are we so angry when the other one's still, like, I could understand if they said, hey, we're remaking American Psycho and you better hurry up and watch it and rent it and buy it because when this movie comes out, we're taking it off the shelves, we're taking it off streaming, you're never going to be able to buy it, you're never going to be able to watch it ever again. All of you who currently have it and you download it, we're going to fucking remove that license, you're not even going to buy it, we're going to do this, oh my God, well then I could be like, whoa, okay, but you better hope that fucking remake is amazing, you know what I'm saying? Right? That because you're taking it away. But that never happens. They never take it away. And movies have been remade for generations. And so, Scarface is a remake, for goodness sakes, right? So why is it we get so upset? And again, I haven't done my due diligence on this, but I think it has something to do with some sort of psychological phenomenon that fans, and it's subconscious. You're not necessarily thinking of this consciously. It's not brought to your conscious mind, but you're somehow thinking to yourself, or not thinking to yourself, but there's this illusion that's created that's kind of like, well, Hollywood, by making this movie, Hollywood is being intrusive. They're being intrusive and they're telling me that this is the one that matters now. This is the one you have to pay attention to. This is the one that you better like. This is the one that you better buy. This is the new one. This is the new one. See, out with the old, in with the new. Don't worry about the old one anymore. It's the new one. It's the new one. New. I thought I had like a DVD around here, but hey, pretend this is a DVD. This is the new one. This is the new one. This is the one you have to pay attention to right here. Don't worry about the old one. It's all about the new. And I think, again, fans don't necessarily think of this consciously, but I think the fact that Hollywood remakes classics, there is a certain level of subconscious, intrusive phenomenon that it feels that way to them. Like they are taking something away. Like they're telling fans, this is what you should be paying attention to. This is the one that matters now. We're remaking it, so this is the one that matters now, right? It's not like clothing, where if they're updating something in clothing, the old design goes out. You can't get the old design anymore. It kind of I think that's kind of how moviegoers and consumers treat it. Do you know what I mean? Like if they were to update, like, I don't know, like something. And it's taken me many years to kind of figure that out, because I used to kind of get like that too. Like, oh, fuck, I don't know. But then I'm like, well, why am I so angry? Like the other one still exists. They're not saying the other one isn't canon anymore. They're not saying the other one isn't real anymore. They're not saying the other one doesn't matter anymore, right? It's still there. It's still, so you can, it's like Ghostbusters. I actually liked the 2016 Ghostbusters. I didn't think it was amazing, but I didn't think it was the catastrophic dumpster fire that people wanted you to think it was. But after I watched it, I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. I had a good time with it. It was all right, but it didn't do much for me, and it didn't ruin I still have the original. It's not like when I go and see the original in a store or something, I'm like, oh, I miss you. I wish you were still available. It is still available. Buy it, pick it up, rent it, buy it, go watch it. It's still canon. It's still there. It still exists. It still matters. It's still there. And so I think that's what it is. And again, it's a very layman's terms, the way I'm describing it, but I think there is some sort of phenomenon that happens where when Hollywood creates something, fans will sometimes think that they are, in some sort of roundabout, inconspicuous way, asking you to forget the past, asking you to forget the original, asking you to put it to bed, asking you to get rid of the original. That's not what they're doing. They're just remaking the movie for a new audience. And they've done that for years. They've done it for decades. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. You know what I mean? And so it's interesting though, isn't it? Like it's really interesting. Really interesting. So with American Psycho, I'm like, yeah, the first one's a classic. We'll see how this one does. But when this one comes out, if it's not very good, you still have the original. It's okay, right? And you don't have to see the remake. You don't have to see it if you don't want to see it, right? I know people that have never seen Dr. Sleep. Now, despite the fact that Dr. Sleep is supposedly very good, I've yet to see it, but despite the fact that it's supposedly very good, right? And let's say it is, there are people that say, no, I don't want to see it. You got to hand it to them. Like the people that say, I don't want to watch your Billy films because Black Christmas is all it is to me. Okay, I got to hand it to you. But then don't watch my film or both my films and say, yeah, I got to commend you. It really is amazing, what you've been able to do here. But the fact that these two films exist, that's why I'm going to give you a 1 out of 5. With all due respect, that's petty. That's lame. I mean, you're free to do that, but how can I take you seriously, right? You know what I mean? Anyway, it's fun stuff. Got that. And then we've got KJ Saw sends in $4.99, says, also, are you into the Terrifier movies? I just saw the third one. Do you think Art the Clown can fit in the top tier horror villain icon? I'm not a fan of the Terrifier movies. I'm not a fan. Like, I don't mean that I think they're, the biggest pieces of shit of all time. I don't mean that. They're just not my kind of horror. The splatter films are not really my thing. But listen, Terrifier 3 has done is great for independent horror. A rising tide raises all ships. And I commend them for that. It's from a business and marketing perspective, it's been brilliant. It's been absolutely brilliant. The movie itself, I've heard people say they love it. I've heard people say they're like, it's great, but it's just kind of more of the same, but on steroids. There is a story there, but it's still the weaker part of the whole thing. I've heard a variety of things. I think Art the Clown he's hugely popular, and they are definitely pushing him to be a horror icon. That's sort of kind of where we are now is, back in the 80s, because the slasher subgenre was new, relatively speaking, all these things with, Freddy serials and, Freddy commercials and Freddy Krueger this and Jason Voorhees that, and all these things were done organically because of the time, because of the pop culture at that time. And Freddy and Jason organically became pop culture icons, not just horror icons, but pop culture icons. And it feels more like the marketing team behind the Terrifier films and Art the Clown are pushing Art to become a horror icon rather than letting it happen organically. They're sort of they're kind of trying to push him to become that. And that's fair. I mean, I get that. He's definitely well on his way, for sure. And certainly, if you follow me for any length of time, you know where I stand on that. I take a more nuanced approach, and to Terrifier stands and, Terrifier purists, they don't like that. They're generally speaking, unable to instill nuance, because when you instill nuance and you look at both sides of the equation, it can give certain people the illusion that you're throwing shade a certain way or whatever. And that's not the case at all. I couldn't care less whether we were talking about Art the Clown or Terrifier or Attack of the Killer Toilets. I'm looking at this. There's a movie for you. I'm looking at this objectively. And for me, for those that say Art is a horror icon, I say, well, he's well on his way to becoming one. And he's extremely popular right now. But there's a difference between horror icon and pop culture icon. And I don't think he's a pop culture icon yet, not even close. And we'll see. We'll see if it happens. I said a month or two ago, I'm very curious to see how Terrifier 3 does and what it will do for Art the Clown, and it is only continuing to push him forward as a force to be recognized and seen. And we'll see how it goes. My worry is that what is the tipping point? And although people are going to see this now and they're excited about it and they love it, when is it going to, because the Terrifier films, and again, I say this, I don't say this as shade. I say this because these are just the facts. The Terrifier films are built around a shtick. They're built around a gimmick. They're built around a hook. Now, hook, shtick, and gimmick can sometimes have a bad connotation depending on, what you're saying. I don't mean it in the bad way. I mean it in that the Terrifier films are why people go is, yes, Art the Clown is fun and he's creepy and all that's great, but you go because of the blood, the guts, and the gore. You go because it's unrated, because it's a splatter film on steroids. They pull no punches. They show everything. I mean, Damien Leone talks about going to the line and not going over it. I find that hard to believe. I don't know what line. I mean, maybe now, short of actually showing a child being murdered on camera, I don't know where else you go. And that will lead into a point in a few moments. But it's one of those things where that's why you go, right? You go to see how more disgusting it is. That's part of the shtick. That's part of the marketing. They use that as part of the marketing. Now, I don't say that there's anything wrong with it, but that's what this is, right? If Art the Clown was like Thanksgiving or like Halloween or like Friday the 13th, I don't know how popular it would be. Would it be as popular? Would it be making as much money? I don't know. Maybe, but we don't know, because that's a very, very different type of movie with a very, 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 very different type of hook. As much as people love Art the Clown, and they love Art the Clown, and as much as there's many cosplayers as of Art the Clown, and there's a lot of them, and as much as that face, and he's got and the illustrations of art and all that are fantastic. As much as he's becoming popular, the real hook is not him. He's part of it. But it's not him. It's not in the same ways as Michael, Jason, and Freddy. The hook of the Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and Halloween films are your villains, is the antagonist, right? The hook for the Terrifier films is part art, yes, but very much, oh my God, how crazy is it going to get now? What sort of blood guts? Oh my God, I want to see how more crazy it's going to. That's what's bringing you into the theater. That's why you're going to watch the movie. That's really what it's all about. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I worry, what is the threshold of that? When does that become just the same thing over and over again? Because, and I mention that because although I've yet to see Terrifier 3, and I will, there are some people that have seen it that have reached out to me and said, really loved it, but there was nothing in the movie that topped the hacksaw or the bedroom scene for me. It was just more of that. That's interesting. Now really think about, now maybe you feel differently, but think about that statement from some of these viewers, right? There was nothing in the movie, okay, that for them, not necessarily for you, but for them, and they are part of that population that goes and watches the movie, so we have to take that into consideration. There was nothing in it for them that topped the hacksaw or the bedroom scene from the previous two movies. There was just more of those scenes in this movie. And it was crazy, and it was wild, and it was bloody, and it was gory, and we were going, whoa, wow, holy cow, whoa, whoa. But there was nothing that topped it. So I asked then, when it comes to Terrifier 4, where do you go, right? Is it just going to be more of 3? Or are they going to have to push some sort of line that they may have thought they weren't going to just to get a rise out of you? I mean, how many ways can you dismember somebody? How many ways can you, have bowels fall out of somebody's stomach? How many different ways can you have hands being chopped off and blood squirting out of somebody's neck and, chainsaws going through all that is great, but there is a threshold. There will come a time where you go, we've seen this. You're desensitized to it now. And because that is the driving force of those movies, and Art the Clown plays a role, he does, but Art the Clown, and in my estimation, okay, and this is my opinion, you're free to disagree, but Art the Clown, in my opinion, is really, from a certain point of view, don't get me wrong, he's got a great look, the illustrations and all the drawings of him are just great, like he's got a great look, he's great, it's cool. But he's really kind of piggybacking off of the kind of horror movies they are. Would Art the Clown be just as popular today if he was in a regular horror movie? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not saying no. I'm saying I don't know. And I don't know because of how popular that driving force hook is. Art is along for the ride, right? But you take out Art and you stick another character in there that's just as charismatic, and it might still be doing just as well. And so I'm not knocking David Howard Thornton. I think David Howard Thornton is a lovely man. I think what he's done with Art the Clown is awesome. And I absolutely can see the appeal of Art the Clown. I can. But hopefully my viewers can understand the nuance that I'm instilling here, because I like to look at things from a more nuanced approach. I don't like to get so caught up emotionally. I like to look at things as objectively as we possibly can. And look, there's no doubt about it. Terrifier 3 is huge. And there's no doubt about it that Art the Clown is very popular. And he's well on his way to becoming a horror icon this generation. When I say this generation, I don't mean my generation. I mean, if you're 15, if you're 16, if you're 22, if you're 23, he's well on his way to becoming your generation's Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, whatever. But I question the longevity of the films because of the foundation for which they're built. And I don't know how many more dismembering you can do going forward until we go, yeah, that was gorier than the last, but it was just more of it. Right? Like that's kind of where, and that's what those people were saying. They said, it's not that Terrifier 3 was crazier, it just was more of the crazy. Okay, well now let's go to Terrifier 4. What are they going to do? Is it going to be crazier, or is it just going to be more of the crazy? And so I'm very curious to see what they're going to do, because without going over the line, listen, folks, there's only so much you can do. You can only push the line so far with so many movies until you've got to go over, right? I mean, there's only so much you can do, because then we've seen it all. Right? And so maybe you feel differently from some of those people, but I have had a few people say to me, love the movie. It was gory. It was crazy. It was a lot of fun, but it was just more of the crazy. It wasn't crazier necessarily. Now you may feel differently, but we have to take those remarks into consideration, because they are your fellow moviegoers and they are part of the general population. And so it's interesting. It's interesting. What will Terrifier 4 be? You know, how much crazier can they get? Right? They can always get gore. The gore will always be there, but it's a fascinating discussion. So I think he's well on his way, but I don't think he's quite there yet. He's well on his way, though. He's very popular right now, and he's really hot. He's really hot. He's really hot, for sure. Let me see here. Super chat comes in from Music Man. Hey, what's going on, Music Man? Thank you so much. Says there's room enough in the world for all creative endeavors, whether they are remakes or originals. I agree. Sometimes remakes can be lazy, and other times they can add more depth to the original and can bring it to a younger audience, for sure. Oh yeah, listen, I'm not against remakes at all. I actually wouldn't be against remaking the original Star Wars trilogy. I wouldn't. At this point in the game, now I don't know if Disney's the right, I don't know if Disney's the right studio to do that. I just mean that I've been okay for a while with them remaking it. I'm not listen, I love the original trilogy. I grew up on it. It's my favorite. I have an emotional attachment to it. But at this point in the game, at 45 years old, and maybe it's because of all the shit that Disney's been doing, I'm okay with it. Again, I'm not saying Disney does it, but if somebody wanted to do it, why not? You know what I mean? The problem with remakes is sometimes they're not very good because they are appealing. Yeah, they're look, I don't want to look. They're just in the wrong hands. They're just in the wrong hands. Look what happened to Black Christmas 06. I think Black Xmas 06 gets more love today primarily because of the 2019 movie. Before the 2019 film, Black Xmas was liked, but it was largely loathed. And now, in retrospect, they go, well, it's not as bad as the 19 movie. And so they kind of look at it again through, maybe, a bit of a different lens, and they feel that it's not that bad. But regardless, the two Black Christmas movies were, not very good in my opinion, and the 19 film was atrocious, absolutely atrocious and insulting to my intelligence. And then we come along with $200,000 and deliver what we did. And again, that doesn't mean you're going to like both our films, but we also didn't have a studio breathing down our necks. But it can be done. It can be done. And as Music Man says, look, not all remakes you're going to like. Not all remakes are necessary. But remakes will continue to happen. They will not stop. So get used to it, because they like to, bring in stories for retell it for a new generation. But I am of the mind, though, that I think maybe they should look at movies that were box office flops years ago, but only box office flops because they were maybe ahead of its time. They were really relevant, but they just were, or they weren't relevant at that time. They were ahead of its time. Look at stories and movies that are very relevant today and retell those, right? Retell the ones that maybe didn't do well and see if they can do well. You know what I mean? Because maybe they're more topical today. They're more relevant today. That's what I think they should do. There's no need to remake Back to the Future. There's no need to do that. Not that they're going to do that. I just mean there's no need to do that. And then, hang on, I don't want to miss these super chats here. We got Michael Dammit sends in $5. Says, Dave, have you seen the sped up vid I posted on the Slaughtered Lamb Facebook page of David Howard Thornton putting on the makeup? I have not, no, but I have seen a video from a few years ago of him getting his makeup on. So, and as somebody that sat in a makeup chair for 4 hours, for 4 days in a week, getting the Freddy Krueger makeup on, I can relate. I know exactly what he's going through. So I don't know if his makeup took as long. It doesn't look as involved. The Terrifier makeup doesn't look, because it's not a whole head thing. I think they put like a cap on him. It's the face and maybe a bit of the neck, but then he puts that sort of hood up. So I would say, and I don't know this, if David Howard Thornton ever sees this, he can say, but I would say it probably takes a couple hours. I'd be surprised if it took any more than 2.5 or 3 hours. That would shock me, because it doesn't look like it would take that long. And I don't mean that as a slight that it's not good work. I just mean that the logistics of what's involved in turning David Howard Thornton into Art the Clown, I don't think is nearly as involved as turning somebody into Freddy Krueger. And so, but it does look like he was probably in the chair for at least a couple hours. But I don't think it's not the one that you posted. This is one from like a couple years ago. Like it might have even been from the first Terrifier, or the second Terrifier, or something like that. Dave Mcrae, #1 hater. Yes, I love it. Dave, I have a bone to pick with you. You ruined the entire Black Christmas franchise with your atrocious fan films that you have created. I have so many things to say that would make you cry. Yes, I love it. Let me see here. The Artisan Tube. As a horror fan for 35 years, I think I saw A Nightmare on Elm Street on TV when I was 7. I wanted to write something that I feel us horror fans have been kind of searching for decades now. Good for you, Artisan. Good for you. Keep it up. Cappy Queen says, it's art. Its art is the awake version of Freddy being just a non-talking character, very charismatic. He's got a great look, and he's a mime. I mean, he's not just a clown, he's a mime, right? So, I can understand the appeal for sure, but my only concern, I'm sure Damien Leone has thought of all these things. If Art the Clown was my property, my only concern would be, how do I keep this fresh and interesting and move it forward? Because at some point, eventually, whether that's Terrifier 4 or whether that's Terrifier 44, at some point, there's going to be a time where you all go, I've seen this, right? Been there, done that. Because there's only so many ways you can watch somebody get disemboweled. I mean, there's only so many ways you can watch limbs being torn off. I'm just saying. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I did notice, though, that I think there was Yeah, anyway, I could go on with that. But Zodiac Z, or as we like to say here in Canada, Zodiac Z. That whole pleasuring yourself with a piece of glass thing, though, is some of the stupidest shit I've seen. Come on, sorry if I spoil it, but I don't even know what you're talking about there, but I guess maybe it has something to do with Terrifier 3. Sal Wayne's Knight says, art will never be at the level of Jason, Freddy, and Michael. The 80s was different time. It just won't ever happen. I think there's an argument to be made there, and as I've said before, but I don't think this is, I get it, it has, you see, people who sometimes it's hard to talk to movie fans because they think too emotionally about things. I think what you said there, Sal Wayne's Knight, I think there is a kernel of truth to that, but it has nothing to do, as you would probably agree, it has nothing to do with Art the Clown itself. It's more about the construction, the foundation of the character in the movies and where we are today. I've talked about this before, but yeah, it's I don't know, as well as Terrifier 3 has done, and it has done well. It has done well. It's still too early to tell. That's what I'll just say to that. For some people, it's not. Look, there were some people that were calling Art the Clown a horror pop culture icon at the end of Terrifier 2. I can't take those people seriously. I'm sorry. I just can't take you seriously, with all due respect. I think despite the success of Terrifier 3, I believe the jury is still out. And maybe some people don't like that, but that's not me saying that Art the Clown is a piece of crap. I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying that there are very specific nuances and details here. I don't like to throw around the words iconic, legendary, and greatest of all time so loosely. We live in a world where those words are tossed around loosely. Too many people use those words to simply refer to something or someone that is popular, that is hot. And that's not how I like to do it. I like to reserve those words for a true icons. And I don't agree with IndieWire through marketing when they say Art the Clown is a horror icon. I don't agree with them. He's well on his way to becoming one, but let's wait a little bit. He's well on his way, folks. I will be the first to admit that. He's well on his way to becoming a horror icon. But will he cross the threshold of the horror, icon into the pop culture zeitgeist? Those are two different stratospheres. Freddy, Jason, and Michael are in the pop culture zeitgeist. If you don't know what a zeitgeist is, look it up. I've talked about it before, but that's very different. That becomes part of popular culture. So that means whether you've seen, for example, Darth Vader is part of popular culture. Whether you know his name, whether you've seen any Star Wars movie or not, whether you've heard his voice or not, whether you know who played Darth Vader or not, whether you know who did his voice or not, whether you could give two shits about Star Wars or not, you know who Darth Vader is. That is a different level. That is a very different level. And so is Art the Clown? Well, he's running the muck, right? Not running the muck, but running fire right now in his own league, right? His league being horror. That's the league. He's running fire right now. Everybody in horror knows who he is, of course. And he's starting to push that envelope in the pop culture, right? Because of the success of Terrifier 3, there's talk shows talking about him now, talk shows that ordinarily wouldn't know who the fuck Art the Clown is, right? They're starting to talk about him, buzz. He's starting to, yes, he's starting. It's brewing. He's starting to poke around. But for me, I personally am not ready to call Art the Clown yet a pop culture icon. I'm not ready to call him that yet. It's a very different stratosphere. Is he well on his way to becoming a horror icon? Yes. But I'm not ready to put that crown on him just yet. But that's me. I'm very strict with these kind of things. You know that. That's not me throwing shade at Terrifier. That's not me throwing shade at Art the Clown. I would say the same fucking thing if it was some movie called Attack of the Killer Toilets that was running rampant. It was really hot. There was some crazy toilet creature that everybody was loving. I'd say the same thing. This is how I analyze film. This is how I look at things. And if you follow me for any length of time, you know that. So I'm not throwing shade at Art the Clown. I'd be saying the same thing if it was Michael Myers that had sprung onto the scene and everything was new and I'd be saying the same thing. I'd be saying the same thing about my own fucking character. If I created something, I'd be saying the same thing. It's just how I like. Most movie fans don't do this. They shoot from the hip emotionally, and in the world of fandom, something is either a 10 out of 10 or it's shit. There's no nuance. And if you give a score of like 7 out of 10, people go, "Oh, why didn't you like it?" What do you mean, why didn't I like it? 7 out of 10 it's a great score. That's a great score. 7 out of 10 is a great score. 8 out of 10 is a great score, right? You only have to start asking questions when you get to like, 6 out of 10 or 5 out of 10 or, 2 out of 5 or, that kind of, like, that's when you start to kind of go, oh, is there something kind of, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's just how I see it. And so, He's hot right now. He is the hot new thing right now. He's like LeBron James, rookie year, right? You know what I mean? He's hot. He's Wayne Gretzky in his first couple of seasons. He's hot. He's hot. But how will history look at Art the Clown? We don't know yet. How will the pop culture, how will this generation look at Art the Clown, right? One of the best ways to describe it is when I say, like, when you are part of the pop culture zeitgeist, you're part of popular culture. So that means when you think of like a generation like the 80s, when you think of the 80s, what comes to mind? Maybe Michael Jackson, maybe Madonna, maybe the DeLorean, right? Maybe Steven Spielberg. You know what I mean? That's a different level. And so when you think of a generation, these, like if you were doing a mural on a wall of the 80s, there's certain things that will be in there. E.T. will be in there. The DeLorean will probably be in there, right? When we're doing like an 80s pop culture thing, right? When we do like a pop culture of the 20s, will Art the Clown be in there? I don't know. Maybe. We don't know that yet because we're still in it. And so we have to remove ourselves from it to really get a great sense of it. But yes, he is the hot new thing right now, and he is well on his way. If he stays on this trajectory and Terrifier 4 isn't a catastrophic failure of epic proportions, then Art the Clown, and he stays hot, and he's going to stay hot through merchandise and all that kind of stuff, then he will, at the very least, he will solidify himself as a horror icon. Will he become part of the pop culture lexicon, part of the pop culture zeitgeist moving forward, where it doesn't matter if you've seen the movie, it doesn't matter if you know his name, it doesn't matter if you are a horror fan, it doesn't matter at all. You know that clown. Will he become like that? I don't know. I have no idea. Whether you've seen it or not, Pennywise, right? Whether you've seen A Nightmare on Elm Street or not, Freddy Krueger. That's a different level. And I'm not saying Art can't get there. I'm just saying he's not there yet. Not yet. But is he well on his way? Yes. If he stays on this trajectory, yes. But I'm not ready to call it out yet. I'm just not. It's just because I take GOAT, greatest, icon, legendary, all that stuff really seriously. And I think those words are tossed around too loosely nowadays. So loosely that they just sort of don't have any meaning anymore. You know what I mean? That's just how I feel about it. Michael, I was going to say Michael Mann. Music Man sends another $10. Thanks, buddy. He says, I would love to see a remake of Stephen King's Silver Bullet. The original was amazing. I would love to see it brought to the screen for the younger generation with a deeper dive into the story. Yeah, speaking of wolves, I did watch the, by the way, I think that would be a cool remake. I agree. I think that'd be really cool. I have seen Wolfman, the new trailer, and I really liked it. I'm really looking forward to it. Looks pretty good, if you ask me. Looks pretty good. Tom Hungarian says, Dave ain't lying. I've never seen a Star Wars movie in my life, but I know Darth Vader. That's what I'm talking about. Like, that's a different level. That is a very different level. Did you know that Elvis, and you probably did, Elvis Presley never performed outside of the United States? I mean, in Hawaii and things like that, out of North America. He performed twice in Toronto. He performed, I believe it was twice. Maybe that was the Beatles, it was twice. But anyway, he was here once. Of course, the continental US, Hawaii, but he never went overseas. And Elvis Presley is one of the most iconic figures in the history of music and the history of pop culture. I don't care what your personal thoughts on him are. I'm talking about he is one of the greatest cultural icons of the 20th century, and he never performed outside of North America. And everybody around the world knows who Elvis Presley is. So much so that he's been dead for 45, 46 years. And he's still, when you look at who sells the most albums year in and year out, he's still in the top 5. He's been dead for over 40 years and he's still selling millions of albums. And he's still in the top 2 or 3 of highest grossing artists of all time. Certainly in the top 5 at least. And for a long period of time, he was number 1. Him and Michael Jackson would go back and forth and he had been dead. It was wild. That's a different level, ladies and gentlemen. That is way different than being popular in your, punk rock hometown. That's very different. Very different. And even Darren from The Slaughtered Lamb made a good point on one of his shows not long ago. He said, nobody here in the UK knows who Art the Clown is. It wasn't until Terrifier 3 that people really started to pay attention because it was getting a wide release, because there were billboards with Art the Clown, because there was a premiere with Art the Clown. Now Art the Clown bobbleheads and cups are going into stores and things like that. But he said before Terrifier 3, he said, I could show my sister, Freddie, Jason, Michael, and she'd go, I know who that is. That's I could show her Art the Clown. She'd go, I don't know who the fuck that is. You know what I mean? So just because something's popular in your hometown, meaning America, doesn't mean it's popular everywhere, right? And so that's something you have to remember too, right? We're talking about levels. There's stages to these kinds of things. It may be really popular in your circles, and because you live and breathe in the horror circles, it appears more popular. And it is. He's becoming iconic in the horror space. Absolutely 100%. I would agree with that. But it's just when we talk about pop culture zeitgeist, guys, hang on a sec. Let's pump the brakes here for a second. And that's not me throwing shade. Oh, Dave, you just hate Art the Clown. No, it has nothing to do with that. I would say it if it was Michael Myers. You know what I mean? I would say this is just how I look at things, right? I'm looking at it objectively because then you get to the truth. You don't get to your emotional skew of the truth. You get to the truth. And the truth is nobody knew who the fuck Art the Clown was in the UK up until Terrifier 3. That's just the truth. And again, that's, of course, people did. We're speaking generally speaking, right? And so now people are starting to pay attention. Okay, now we're getting going. But there were people calling Art the Clown an icon, a pop culture icon after Terrifier 2. Get the hell out of here. You know what you're talking about. You're too caught up in the emotion of your own little world. You know what I mean? That's very different. It's very, very, very different. Now with the success of Terrifier 3, okay, now he's going to do Terrifier 4. Okay, let's see what happens here. Now, is it going to get an even wider release? Is it going to be, you know what I mean? Okay, now we're getting going here. Now we're getting going, right? There's stages to these things, folks. There's stages. Music Man becomes a level number 2 member. Amazing. Thank you, Music Man. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Chester Franklin Jr. says, I like The Thing 1982 remake more than the OG from 1951. I like the way Carpenter did it way better than Howard Hawks. Yeah, and of course, there's a generational gap there in terms of, effects being more dated and all that kind of stuff, but I get it. I totally get it. Yeah, I like The Thing. But it's not my favorite. I kind of like The Fog over The Thing. Don't get me wrong, I love The Thing. But if I was ranking John Carpenter movies, Halloween would be first. I think The Fog would be second for me. The Fog would be second. And then maybe The Thing. Maybe. Or maybe They Live. I don't know. I like The Thing, but it's not my favorite of his. And even after Halloween, it's not next. I'm an unabashed, and myself and Darren Sands of the Slaughtered Lamb, we share this in common. We love The Fog. We're huge fans of The Fog. The Fog doesn't get a lot of love. Like when you see Carpenter movies ranked or like top 5 Carpenter movies, it doesn't get a lot of love. You know, it rarely isn't. Like you'll see Halloween, The Thing, Escape from New York, They Live, and maybe like, I don't know, Vampires or Ghosts of Mars, or I don't know. You'll see one of his later ones, but you rarely see The Fog. I love it, and the soundtrack to The Fog is great. Very Halloween-y. A lot of Halloween-y things in there, but there's a lot of great tracks in The Fog. It's beautifully shot, beautiful location. I mean, it's not like, you know, it's a little dated, and sure, I'm not going to say it's a horror masterpiece or anything, but I am a big fan of The Fog, and I always have been. And I might, if I was ranking the Carpenter movies, I think I would put The Fog over The Thing. Not that, look, The Thing is a studio picture. The Fog is not, I don't think. The Thing had more money. The Thing is more polished. It's got a bigger budget, better special effects. I mean, it looks and feels more big studio than The Fog, and fair enough. But there's something about The Fog that I quite like. Yeah, Brooke Scarlett says the music and atmosphere of The Fog is 100% is fire. I agree with you. Beyond the Film Fatale says In the Mouth of Madness is probably number 2 for me after Halloween. In the Mouth of Madness was shot up here. Was shot in a little suburb. Well, I guess it's its own city, but it's connected to everything here in the GTA in the Greater Toronto area called Markham. You know that big Gothic-looking sort of church? It's in Markham, Ontario. And yeah, he shot that up here. It used to be on its own. Like in the movie, it's like looks like it's in the middle of the field. Now there's a lot of houses and homes all around. If it's still there, I think it's still there. It was closed for a little bit a few years ago now. It's beautiful though. It's beautiful. And it stands out. And it was built specifically for I don't know if it's Ukrainian or what it is. It's some sort of religious church, and they wanted to build a community around it for people to go to, and they did build the community, but it's been, I don't know if it's still shut down. I'd have to look it up, but it was shut down for quite a few years and just kind of lying dormant, which is too bad, really sad, because it's beautiful, and you see it from the highway. Like when you drive by, you're like, holy shit, there it is. You know, it's very tall. So yeah, but that's a good one. I like that one. That's probably one of my favorite ones and I hate to say it, and this is not popular to say, I'm an unabashed fan of his Village of the Damned. I know. Kirstie Alley, Christopher Reeve. I don't know what it is, but I like his Village of the Damned. I do. Call me crazy, but I do. Chester says Assault on Precinct 13 is good Carpenter. It is not one of my favorite, although I haven't seen it in a very long time, so I'd have to get back to watching it again, but it is a good one. I agree with that. Let me see here. Where are you guys? I've got so many tabs always open up on my channel. Danita Brown! What's going on, Danita? Hello, Dave. Hi, Brooke, Rosie, Chester. Great to see you here, Danita. Evil Alex says, The Thing is my favorite horror film, period. Love the story, the music, the effects, character, paranoia, undertone, and great ending. You want to know my thoughts on the ending of The Thing? Maybe I should make this a video, but I'll just give you my thoughts here. I don't think either of them are The Thing. I know there's evidence that, well, one, you can see the breath of somebody and not the breath of, the other. You can see like a glisten in somebody's eye, but you can't see the other. I don't think that is intentional. I don't know if Carpenter has said that or not. Maybe he's been a bit coy and a bit sort of secretive with the ending. I personally, this is my thoughts, I don't think either of them are The Thing. And I think what is going to drive one of them to kill the other is the paranoia that the other is The Thing. And I think that is sort of kind of the point, is that it's the paranoia that's going to set in, that they're not quite sure with each other, and maybe that's what drives one of them to kill the other. Now, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Carpenter's like, no, one of them is The Thing. Or maybe he's just saying that just to keep the mystique going. I don't know. Or maybe one of them is the Thing, and maybe it's in the script. I don't know. But whenever I watch The Thing, I've always thought to myself, I don't think either of them are the Thing. But both of them are not sure about the other. And it's that paranoia that will eventually drive one of them to kill each other. And that's what I think. Whether that's Mcrae killing, what's his name? Childs or, God, I forget. Anyways, whether that's what I think it is. I think it's just all about paranoia. And that's the point. That they defeated the Thing, but now they don't know. It's the paranoia will get them. The paranoia will get them. Aaron Click says, wasn't the actual truth revealed in audio commentary? Oh, maybe it was. I don't know. I haven't watched it. Maybe it was. That's what I took away from it anyway. Neil Rook says, hello, mate. I recently sent my voiceover demos. Oh, one commercial, one narrative, one character to about 25 agents. Wow. If I've not heard from them, is it best to follow up? 25 agents. Holy snap and crap. If you've sent to 25 agents, chances are you probably will hear back from one of them. Maybe not. I would let it go for about a month, maybe a few weeks. Let it go. And then just kind of follow. Now, did you follow protocol though? It's important to follow protocol because talent agents, whether it's a voiceover specific agency or a talent agency that has a voiceover division, are extremely busy. And so as long as, you don't want to be soliciting. So as long as there is, these agencies welcome submissions, if you have a voiceover demo, if you submit to what, as long as you follow protocol, then you should be fine. You may hear back, you may not. I would follow up in maybe, a couple of weeks, maybe, just to kind of see. Yeah, not a month, maybe a couple of weeks. Let a week go by, and then maybe the next week after that, follow up and just inquire whether they got it or not. Understand that depending on the agencies you sent to, and I don't know who you sent to, but depending on who you sent to, they are bombarded with this kind of thing. And, but hey, we'll see what happens. I wish you the best of luck, Neil. I wish you the best of luck. Keep me posted. Jack Jackson says, happy Saturday, my fellow horror fans. Eating some French toast with sunny side eggs. Love it. Let me see here. Did I get all the super chats? I believe I did. I've got them all. I just want to make sure that I've got them all. Music Man became a new member. I love it. Yes, it looks like I have. I just want to make sure that I have. And it looks like I have. All right. Oh, Jesus. Let me see here. By the way, folks, again, for those of you just tuning in, I want to say thank you to everybody who watched It's Me, Billy Chapter 2. We're closing in on 10,000 views right now, which is awesome and amazing. So thank you so much. And for those of you that have yet to watch it, please remember that you're going to get the best experience out of Chapter 2 by watching Chapter 1 first, then watch Chapter 2. Or if you want the ultimate experience, watch the original Black Christmas from 1974. There's no excuses. It's free on YouTube. Just type in Black Christmas 1974. It pops up. The whole movie's there for free. Watch that, then watch It's Me, Billy Chapter 1, then watch It's Me, Billy Chapter 2, and you'll get the full sort of experience. Now, there are, again, because there are things, maybe if you're not a Black Christmas fan, if you've never seen the original movie, and I'm talking about the original Black Christmas, there might be some things that go over your head. So that's why it's important to get a full sense of what we're delivering, a full sense of the whole scope in terms of the story, to be familiar with what's going on. Because there are things that maybe might go over your head that may not go over the average Black Christmas fan's head. And I'm not just talking about like Easter eggs, like, the unicorn on Agnes's coat or, things like that. I'm talking about story beats and points. So, but thank you for the feedback. Even if you didn't like the movie, that's okay. I love when people say like, Dave, I'm sorry. I can't bring myself. Well, those people are weird when they're like, I just can't bring myself to like your movie because I'm such a fan of the original. Okay. But that's art, folks. That is art. When you make a movie and you put it out into the world, people are going to critique it. They're going to look at it. They're going to dissect it. They're going to be like, I don't like this. I like this. Whatever the case is, that's art. That's the reality. You can't do this. Not everybody's going to like what you do, right? But thankfully, the response has been largely positive, and people seem to have really appreciated what we've put together. And I don't just mean from people who watch the channel. I mean from people who I don't know. There's been reviews from people I don't even know who they are that say they really like it. There's been, reviews in written form. There's been reviews. People have reached out to me via DMs. I don't know who they are, saying really liked it. Fantastic. Love this, love that. There's been people that have reached out and said, don't like it. Sorry, I like the first one better. That's okay too. The only thing I will continue to say for those that, because again, I say this and I don't mean to sound like to beat a dead horse, but it's important that people always remember that until, and maybe this will become more apparent once we do the ultimate cut, when we put two films together and we put that out there. But that chapter 2 isn't its own separate movie that takes place like 2 years later, where it has like a first, second, and third act. You know what I'm saying? It really is just the last half of the movie you've already watched half of. So Billy 1 is the first act and the beginning of the second act. Billy 2 is the end of that second act and the third act. So that's why it feels that things ramp up more. I think I like the first one better because there was more of a slow burn and, because that's the first half of the movie. And anytime you watch a movie, what happens during the end of the second act and third act? Things begin to ramp up, right? So that's why chapter 2 may feel a bit more ramped up in comparison to chapter 1. It was designed that way. It's because you're watching the last half of the whole film now. And so, we can't start over again. We have to start at the end of the second act. So just keep that in mind for those of you that may not be familiar with my channel or how to watch it. That's sort of the best way that's why to get the best experience, watch 1, then 2. To get the full experience, watch the original 1 and 2. And then you'll get kind of a big sense of it. Doesn't mean you're going to like the movie. I'm just saying that, that's what happens. That's the best thing to do. Super chat from Pedro Lucario. Am I saying that right? Pedro's Lucario sends in $2. Says the new Halloween 16-bit game released yesterday. Did it? Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was an 8-bit game. It's a 16-bit game? Cool. I'll have to check it out. Thank you, man. Really appreciate that. I will have to check it out. Let me see. I want to get some non-super chat ones here before we call it a day. Let me see here. Got that. Guys, talking about yourselves. Alex Shambach says, Dave, I showed both my sister and mom a photo of Art and asked if they recognize him, and they both said no. Yeah, well, not yet. Maybe ask them again in a couple years, and they might. But that's my point, right? That's my point. It's not a slight. It's just the facts of the situation. That's just the reality, right? That's just the reality. But he's well on his way. But I can understand, like, if you just live in the bubble, if you live in the horror bubble, right, then yeah, he would seem like he's Elvis to you, right? But if you get outside of the horror bubble and you realize, oh, he's really popular in his space, one could argue he's becoming iconic in his space for sure. But a pop culture icon, that's very different. Very different. I'm not saying he's not going to get there. I'm just saying it's very different. He's not there. Evil Alex says, plenty great remakes from The Thing, The Fly to Hills Have Eyes. Yeah, you know what? The remake of The Hills Have Eyes is really good. Hey, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 2003. Listen, I have a soft spot for the original, which is also celebrating its 50th year anniversary this year. It was released on the same day the original Black Christmas was released, which was October 11th. But I kind of like that remake with Jessica Biel. What was it, 03, 04? I dig it. I do dig it. Bryden Curry, Dave, always hating. I'm always hating. It's such hate. I hope you're being satirical, of course. Because if you're not, let me see. You scroll down here, scrolling. Keep that scrolling going. Scared Straight Productions says, Dave, it's Michael Myers' birthday. How do you think he'd celebrate? Congrats on It's Me Billy 2. Can't wait for more. Is it Michael's birthday today? Oh, October 19th. It is too. It is. I didn't even think of that. That's a deep cut. That's true. That is true. It is. How do I think he'd celebrate? Killing some bitches. There you go. How's that? Killing some bitches. Oh no, it's not Halloween yet. He can't. No, I think that's how he'd celebrate. Or maybe he'd celebrate by going to, I don't know, the bakery section at Walmart and getting a big, gigantic, 5 foot long Michael Myers cake and eating it or something. I don't know. That's a great question. It is. Happy birthday, Michael Myers. Michael Audrey Myers. Now it's only Audrey because of Halloween 4. I don't think Audrey was mentioned. Well, it certainly wasn't mentioned in the first movie. I don't think it was mentioned in the second movie. So, very cool indeed. Bobby Hall! What's going on, Bobby Hall? Every time I say Bobby Hall, I think, of course, of the hockey player. But Bobby Hall says, Dave, what is your intention for the audience to somewhat sympathize with Billy? I kind of felt bad for him in Chapter 2 since he was a mental patient and Agnes wasn't the greatest sister in the world. Well, it wasn't our intention to have you feel really anything for him. I think that is just, a natural byproduct of what may happen to an audience member, being an audience member. You may sympathize or empathize at the very least with him, perhaps. And if that's what you do, then that's great. That wasn't our intention. Another reason why you don't show somebody's face. I think Billy is just as, crazy and just as insane as his sister. I don't think he's any less insane than his sister. Obviously there's no excuses, to do what they've done. And so, no, it wasn't our intention to have you empathize or sympathize with Billy. That certainly was not the intention, but it is also the creative risk. It's the risk that you take creatively when you open things up a bit more, right? And you reveal a bit more. And so when you do that, that's just a natural byproduct. There are some people that may feel that. There are some people that may not. But it wasn't our intention for you to feel that. The intention was to, give some insight into where Billy has been, and how his sister connects to that. And what that sort of all means. The real bomb really, is the reveal at the end. And again, there are some people that and fair enough, that wanted to know, well, what is this evidence? You talk about the evidence. There's the USB drive, which is the chess piece. That's very symbolic, which is really cool. But what is on there? And Bruce and I don't spill it all out for you, but if you're paying attention, you do get a sense of what is on there, right? And it all is on that phone call at the end with Billy, and it's designed that way. And so, again, but if you're not a Black Christmas fan and you haven't seen the original Black Christmas, then there's a lot of what Jess says at the end of that phone call where it might go over your head. That's why it's so important to watch the original film, because then that phone call is going to have real meaning for you. And it's a bombshell. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of what is on that drive. So when Jess says, it's everything I discovered about that night, she's talking about the 1974 night. But we didn't want to tell you what all that was. See, if this was a studio release movie, they would probably force us to tell you what that was. No, you got to spell it all out. You got to you got to lay it all out. But we didn't want to do that because we want to preserve the mystique of Billy. We want to tell you just enough of what is likely on that drive, and then you can fill in those gaps on your own. And it's designed that way. So that was really what that was all about in terms of, the newspaper clipping and Billy and Agnes and their, relationship. Get really a sense of it. But make no mistake, Billy is a monster. I mean, he is a monster. But if you empathize with him and you feel sort of bad with him, that's okay too. I mean, that's part of the risk you take when you divulge a little more information that gives you a little more of the backstory, right? You know what I mean? can be, I mean, the whole dining room scene was a creative risk. As Bruce said on episode 288 of, Mcrae Live, I mean, we had already had our phone calls. Because again, you remember, you have to look at it as it's all one film. So you've already had your phone calls, but we wanted to get phone calls into chapter 2, but the story didn't dictate phone calls, right? Like there was no opportunity for phone calls. And so the dining room scene with Billy that we dive into his psyche, that's really your phone call scene for chapter 2. And we dive more into his psyche and you see more of that. And what's really cool too, folks, and nobody said this yet, but when Agnes walks into the dining room and it's all quiet, well, I mean, there's the music that obviously that's playing in the soundtrack, but when she walks into the room and Billy's just sitting at the head of the table and he's not even acknowledging her, we imagine that all those things that you saw are still going on in Billy's head. So when you see Billy sitting at the head of the table and you see him sitting around the table and you're getting a sense of all the different personalities, that's not necessarily happening outright verbally, right? That's all happening in here. So if you were to walk into the room at that moment, as Agnes does a few minutes later, if you were to walk into the room at that moment, you don't hear any of that. It's not like you see him sitting around the table or you see him lashing out. You don't hear any of that. You would just see him there at the table, quiet. But that's what's going on in his head. That is how deep and crazy it goes. And it's like, whoa. So when Agnes walks in and Billy is just there and she looks over at him because she's trying to talk to him, we're running out of time. People are going to come looking for the girl and she looks over at him to be like, why aren't you saying anything? He's just sitting there. That's because all that crazy shit could still be going on in his head. And then she just looks back to the window like, oh, fuck. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's those details, those layers that we hope audiences can pick up on. That's the cinematic language. That's the symbolism. That's the depths that we go. And so I think some people may have picked up on that. But it's not necessarily that Billy has stopped, although it looks like it's stopped for you, the audience. That's because we bring you, the audience, into his mind, and then it stops so abruptly because we've taken you out of his mind. We bring you into his mind, and then we take you out of his mind. But that doesn't mean that it has stopped in here. And so it's really cool, right? So hopefully, again, it's those details that I'm hoping audiences can pick up on, because again, that's in the writing, and that scene, especially that scene, the Billy dining room scene, how we open the scene, how we go through the scene, how we end the scene, the things that you're hearing is dripping with subtext and cinematic language, and hopefully audiences are astute enough to pick up on it. Yeah, Aaron says it almost would have played too much into fan service if you put a bunch of arbitrary phone calls in chapter 2. I agree. Because with Sam in the basement and her 2 friends dead, her dad on his way, the grandma in the attic, I mean, who's Billy calling? I mean, I guess he could have called the police station, but to your point, that would have been like, why is he calling the police station? Why? It's just to get a phone call in there. So, again, when you watch Billy 1 and 2 as one movie, you realize, oh yeah, no, we've had our phone calls already, but we did slip one last little phone call in at the end. But of course, Billy couldn't get too crazy on the phone for obvious reasons of where he's hiding. Because then you'd be like, okay, how did she not hear that? How did she not know? He's like, right. You know what I mean? So, that's why when he says something, it's very quiet. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's a great scene. I'm so proud of that scene. And that really was an amalgamation of both of our ideas. Like I knew I wanted to have I knew I wanted him at the head of the table where Sam was, because I knew I wanted to open the film tracking right to left, because we opened opened the scene tracking right to left because we opened that scene with the girls tracking left to right. It was tungsten balance, warm with the girls. It's going to be daylight balance, cold with Billy. There's a lot of mirroring going along, a lot of subtext there. And that was really, really important to me. I wanted him at the head of the table where Sam was. Again, there's that, and I wanted to track across the table like we did with Sam, but this time we're tracking across the table with Billy. I wanted that. And I wanted to have a tirade in the dining room. But then Bruce came in and is like, dude, we got to have, if we're going to go into his psyche, let's have him sitting around the table. But he's not actually sitting around the table. Those are just the representation of the different personalities. And he's sitting in the different spots where the girls were. And so it's all these layers that we went to figure all this out. And so it really was an amalgamation of ideas. And Bruce, from the directing standpoint, Bruce really sort of spearheaded that scene. I was there watching on the monitor, making sure that things looked good, and things were lined up well. I was working with Greg, our DP, with that scene as well. And Bruce was really working with Brian on that scene, and really directing that scene, and taking charge of that. And he did a fantastic job. And then of course there's me behind the monitor, making sure that everything is aligning up the way that we wanted. And it was just awesome. And I did give my thoughts, of course, as well. But when you have two directors, it's important that you don't want to step on each other's toes. So it's important that there are certain scenes that I will take the lead on, and then certain scenes that Bruce will take the lead on. But we're both on the same page creatively. That way you don't have to worry about, one or the other taking the lead, because we both are on the same page. So when you have two directors, especially, it's really important that you don't step on each other's toes, and you allow yourselves to take the leads on certain scenes. The basement scene, for example, I took more of the lead on with Sam coming out, walking down the hallway, things like that. Sam's scene the scene in The Office as well, with Sam on the phone, and things like that. Like there's certain scenes you will take more of the lead on over others, and then the climax I think we both were heavily involved in, anyway, I digress. I'm over time. I gotta get going. Let me just see any last ones here. Just want to see I'm not missing anything. Aaron Click says, Dave, let us know if you hear feedback, chapter from Olivia Hussey. I absolutely will. Of course. Wayne says, about to watch Terrifier 3 on my phone in HD. You must have it bootlegged. Have fun, Wayne. Bobby Hall says, Dave, I know you and Bruce decided not to reveal everything in terms of what evidence Jess found, but do you know yourselves exactly what all the evidence was and how she acquired it? Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, we do. And I mentioned that in my video that I posted on my channel. It's a video just from a couple of days ago. It's only got about 500 views, but I encourage everybody to watch the whole thing. It's about 14 minutes long, but I think you'll really like it. I show examples, and I have video and music and all that kind of stuff. So it's very easily digestible. It's not just me talking to the camera the whole time. But yes, no, we did. And it's important to remember as well, and I talk about this in that video, that Jess was a true crime author. And that is revealed in chapter 2. When Nancy is on the couch and she's on her laptop, and we get that nice close-up of the screen, in the bottom corner, it talks about how she burned in a fiery car crash, or so they thought, and that she's a true crime author. And there's rumors of an unpublished manuscript, which is true, because you see that manuscript at the end of chapter 1, titled Peter's Innocence, when we track along the table in the attic. And so she's a true crime author, and she's written many, many, many books. And when you're a true crime author, a successful true crime author, like she was over the years, you're basically an author / investigative journalist. And so this isn't her first go around. And so she was poking around investigating. So she had a lot of tricks up her sleeves on how to get evidence, of who to talk to. She started to look into those missing people. She knew it was the 50th year anniversary. Agnes even says, I got to hand it to you, Jess. Visiting my brother on my day off was very sneaky of you. I mean, right then and there, that tells you that Jess was at the psychiatric ward. She was poking around, right? What was, holy shit. So, I mean, she was able to obtain evidence through her investigative skills. She was able to obtain evidence because she's, again, for all intents and purposes, an investigative journalist. She was a hugely successful true crime author. And so, she has skills and up her sleeve of who to talk to and where to poke around. And we do have it was written in bullet point form. We do have some of those. I'd have to go back and look at it now because I don't want to say anything that's not correct, but there's bullet points of some of the things that she may have discovered and who she spoke to, whether that's one of the doctors there or whether that's somebody that survived. Like, there's missing people, but let's not forget that, he was found naked on a country road with blood all over him. Well, what was that? Right? Well, we know what that was. What was that? Where was that? whose blood is that? Right? You know what I mean? And so we have bullet point forms of maybe whose blood that was and how that kind of rang, all that. Did Jess find who that was? That a survivor? Did Jess find them? Did Jess talk to them? You know what I mean? And so there's a lot of details there. Again, if this was a 90-minute if we had $5 million and we could flesh all that out, we would. But it's a short film, and it's important that we give you enough meat on the bone where the story makes sense, the plot makes sense. We do tell you what's on that drive. We do. But again, if you're not a Black Christmas fan, it may be a bit harder to grasp that. We understand that, but that's why it's important you watch all 3 movies, because it is there. It is there. The evidence is there. But we had to be not so outright with it again too, because we don't want to reveal everything about Billy. We want to preserve the mystique of these 2 characters. And I think we did a good job of that. Not everybody's going to like it, but hey, that's art. All right, folks, listen, that's going to do it for me for this episode of Mcrae Live. I want to thank my moderators, of course. You guys are amazing. Thank you. Thank you to the super chats that came in today. Really appreciate it. Thank you to Music Man for becoming a level number 2 member. I do have some member shows to do. I owe you guys some member shows. Don't worry, they are coming. I appreciate your patience. Jump into the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on anything I had to say here today. I would really appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of your Friday, a great rest of your Saturday, and I will talk to you all very, very soon. You guys are amazing, and thank you for watching It's Me Billy Chapter 2. Continue to share it, continue to watch it. Again, the holidays are coming up, and watch that video. If you're confused about anything, or if you're unsure about anything, watch the video on my channel that I just posted a couple of days ago. I think it's called breaking down the story or something. Anyways, the thumbnail is me giving direction to Victoria Miro, because that was one of the scenes that I spearheaded, and so just look for that and watch it. It's 14 minutes long, and hopefully it'll give you some insight into how everything connects. I think I did a pretty good job with it, but you'll let me know. Have a great rest of your Saturday, like I said, and I will talk to you all very, very soon. Alrighty, in the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you soon. Cheers.